Hello and welcome to the latest Breaking Barriers, and I'm very excited to chat with Tamsin Fraser today. Um, for so many reasons. But one of them is I know her story really well, and she inspires me every time we talk. She's always pushing that little bit further, doing exciting things, and certainly the developments of the last couple of months are a whole new chapter in the Tamsin story. So I should explain. I had the honour and joy of working with Tamsin on two of my programs, which was fantastic: the Career Elevator and my Impactful Leader Mastermind. And I'm excited. I can't wait for her to share some of the challenges and successes and learnings that she's had through her career story. So I will tell you a little bit about her before we get stuck in. So Tamsin's the founding managing director of Omnipower Renewables. This is hot off the press, folks. A renewable energy development and advisory company active across the UK and Ireland, specialising in identifying, acquiring and developing renewable energy sites. So what a sector to be in. The company works directly with energy users as well to increase their sustainability and to reduce their costs. And alongside this, she's also taken up the role of chair of Renewable NI, the local voice of the renewable industry. Before founding Omnipower Renewables, she was the UK director for a leading international renewables developer, where she was responsible for establishing and delivering a 3GW, and that's not Generation Women, pipeline of onshore wind, solar, energy storage, and hydrogen projects across the UK. She's a graduate, like myself, of Queen's University Belfast, and although I didn't go to Heriot-Watt University Edinburgh, she's a chartered planner with almost 20 years industry experience. Welcome. I know, but we wear it well, don't we? Lovely to have you here, Tamsin.
Thank you so much, Sinead. I really appreciate that. And 20 years sounds like a long time, doesn't it?
Well, it's just indicative of the masses of experience and knowledge you have in what you do. So you wouldn't be as magnificent as you are without all that experience. So why don't you tell us a bit about how so you founded your own company very recently, but you have worked through um, a more of a corporate path in renewables. So do you want to tell us a bit about how you got into that, how you stepped up? Let's hear your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I'm so delighted to be here and have a chat through things today. I think I'd always been very clear on what it was that I wanted to do from a career perspective, really from an early age. My dad has been hugely influential in that. He sort of worked in and around the planning sector, and I always find it really interesting. And as daughters do, want to follow in their daddy's footsteps. So after I finished my master's in planning, I suppose the world is your oyster, and my oyster was in Leeds. I ended up in Leeds and spent a few years there working in a multidisciplinary consultancy and sort of starting to build my graduate and early experience. And I really loved it, but I wanted to be at home. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to come back home. So initially I'd intended to sort of transfer to the NI office of the company that I worked in, but I got a really fantastic opportunity to move to another firm. So I packed all my worldly goods into my little mini, which wasn't very much at the time. And I came home just before Christmas that year once I sort of made the decision. There's a bit of a theme here. Once I make a decision, things tend to happen fairly quickly. So at that time, I then went to work for what was the leading planning consultancy in Belfast at that time. And I think it really got my eyes opened because there's so many different sectors that we were working in. The variety was great, and it was really good experience. Everything from waste to residential, commercial, a lot of retail, urban and rural, you name it, we covered it. And it was really very fast paced, probably compared to my first role. more and more renewables were sort of starting to come through the books at that time, really a couple of years into that role. And I found it really, really fascinating. I always kind of kept an eye on it from a slight distance while I was working on other things, but I found it a really fascinating sector and a real opportunity I saw at that time for growth. The recession hit then in sort of 2005, and the practice that I worked in was heavily reliant on the residential sector. And so, unfortunately, across the UK, there was a lot of redundancies had to be made, and I unfortunately fell foul to that, and it was a really devastating time. I think it knocked my confidence, and I think it really gave me a lot of concern, where was my career going to do personally, what we were going to do, because me and my now husband had just bought our first home, and of course you think the worst. And it was a really, really challenging time. But as I said, I really had a growing interest in renewables. And whilst all that had been happening, there had also been a TV series on the BBC called Wind Farm Wars, for want of a better name, which followed the journey and the kind of the day-to-day life of a project manager from one of the biggest renewable energy companies based in England. And I was captivated. I mean, absolutely captivated for two reasons. One, because I thought it looked pretty damn cool what was going on. And two, because here was this woman going into some really very challenging meetings and discussions, and renewables can be divisive, and certainly back then was. So seeing that lady taking the lead and moving that forward, I just was completely captivated. So sat down with dad, as you do, have discussions, give myself a bit of a shake, and thought, okay, well, look, what better time, given the current situation, to see, is there something in this renewable sector? Is there something here that I can do? Because now seems like a good opportunity to explore it. So whilst I was doing some freelance work, I started looking at roles in renewables, and I came across a 6 month temporary role with a developer, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go for it. Why not? Now's the time to do it. So I went for it. I went to Dublin 3 times for interviews, and that turned into an almost 14-year career with those guys, going from, as I said, a 6 month temporary role right through to ending up as UK director, leading 3 offices, setting up a team across those 3 offices of 30 people, and working alongside colleagues in 15 other countries. So would I have made that jump to a temporary contract maybe at the time from a permanent role? Maybe not, had I not been made redundant. But I think from a really horrible situation at that time, a very stressful situation, actually it turned out to be one of the best things that ever could have happened to me from a career point of view. So that's kind of how I broke into renewables. But I suppose the last couple of months has been all change, as you rightly noted. 2024 has been a big year of change so far, and we're only at the beginning of May. So I've now taken the step to set up my own company, Omnipower Renewables, building really on all that experience that I've gained over that last 14 years, with my previous role, the challenges, the learning, and I'm really excited now how things are taking shape and where it's going even so soon. And as you said, I've also recently taken up the chair of the industry body. I was elected by the membership to take that on a 2-year term. So I've got two really hugely exciting things going on now, and I'm really hoping that I can try and help shape where the sector goes and what our needs are now for the big challenge that we have of getting to 80% by 80% renewables by 2030. So 2024 has been very exciting so far.
Well done, and yeah, an exciting and interesting story. I wanted to pick up on the redundancy piece because I know that's something that a lot of people face, and like it's most people's biggest fear. When I work with women and I'm coaching them, often they're scared to take a next step because what if my next role isn't secure? And I find we have this habit of then going into absolute worst case scenario where they've not even looked for another job, but they're already in their heads living under a bridge. We have a running joke in my program with the wonky trolley. Like, that's just the thinking about doing it. But you were forced into that situation, and actually, like, things can turn out very well. So how did you feel, and how did you get over all that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you go through all those kind of emotions in terms of obviously really sad, didn't know what was going to happen, scared, did I do something wrong? Was could I have done something differently? There was such a mix of emotions at that time. And there was a period of a few weeks where you're kind of deciding, okay, like what am I going to do? And I think it was really a catalyst for me was, really kind of sitting down with my dad and having that conversation. He's a very good person to give you a shake and kick up the backside whenever you need it. And I needed that just to kind of see outside the box and see outside the kind of doldrums that I was in, and start to look for, okay, how are we going to move this forward? So it was really getting that shake and getting that catalyst then to start to look for the opportunity was really important. I probably should have done it maybe more quickly, but I was young as well, I was my early 20s, and it was a very yeah, it was a scary time.
Yeah. And taking that temporary role, I know there's always a nervousness about that, but though making that change and taking that role, that clearly opened up so many doors for you then.
Absolutely, and even getting that experience, even if that 6 months hadn't worked out, even having that experience and being able to kind of put that on the CV, and that taken me in a slightly different direction, because that role, when I took it on, I probably was part of the role that I had experience in, but not the rest of it. So it was quite a big learning curve for me, and obviously it worked out. I stayed and I started to progress through the business. But I was very fortunate as well there, because I had a very strong female leader in the business, who was a mentor, was somebody I could look up to, and was very supportive of what I was trying to do. So having that support internally within the business was really great as well.
Mm. And I'm guessing it sounds like a pretty male dominated area to be in. Like I've come from engineering and whatever myself, and you're often the only woman in the room. I love that you were inspired by uh, a badass planner on the TV, and then this role model in work. But what was it like being often being the only woman in the room?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I've been quite fortunate actually that in my career, certainly my early career, I've actually worked under three female managing directors, which is probably quite unusual. So on one hand, it was sort of the norm for me that women would be in those senior positions. But at the same time, I think I was acutely aware that that wasn't necessarily the norm across the board. It just so happened in my circumstance. Generally, you're right. Sort of the sector that I've worked in is traditionally very, very male dominated, and quite often, I would have been either the only female in the room at the meeting, or certainly, there was just one or two of us, and I think that really brought sort of its own challenges, mostly from the usual saboteurs, the self doubt, the sort of the self limiting beliefs. Should I be there? Is my opinion or my question valid? And I think that really took a long time to kind of get to grips with that. And it was only really, I think, when I realized that, by questioning myself and doubting myself, that I was automatically holding myself back from the opportunities, and not embracing the opportunities that were in front of me. So I think sort of the lessons I learned is just not probably being as hard on myself. I am my own worst critic. I still do it. But I think I've learned to channel that into something quite positive now, rather than using it as a stick to beat myself with. Um, I'm a huge fan. Anybody that's ever worked with me, a huge fan of lessons learned exercise. I think they are so important. And I think if you aren't doing that reflection, be that on a project, a task you're working on, or self reflection, I think you're not taking the best out of that experience forward to whatever that next task or project is. And it doesn't really matter whether it's good or bad. I think both are equally important. There's always something you can take away. the gift of the opportunity, I think, as you call it in your program, Sinead. Say I was listening. So, and I think it's important not to dwell on things either, because it's not helpful. And I think through the redundancy bit, that was a real takeaway for me from that. And I know that's maybe easy to say, but it's something I've really tried to work on and be very strict with myself. So I have a very strict rule now that, you know, I get 24 hours to dwell on whatever it is. If it doesn't go well or doesn't go how I expected, that's it. After that, it's draw a line, it's done. You can't change it. There's nothing you can do to change that, but you can change how you react to it and what happens next. And so looking forward and looking for those solutions. And I think that's really been a big lesson that I have taken away from all of the experiences.
Brilliant. Yeah, the power of reflection. And yeah, and like going back to the wonky trolley I mentioned, things only you only end up in that place, and obviously there's for some people there's other factors, but you only end up in a bad place if you lie down and stop trying. So uh, as long as you're getting up and keeping going and taking that reflection and learning from it, and when you flip it into learning, well, here's what I can do better, then you're giving your brain a direction to go in instead of uh, you know loitering in the pit
Yeah.
of
Self pity.
yeah, setting up camp in self pity time is not the place to be. So, um, obviously you are ambitious and you've achieved a lot already. What was it that made you seek out coaching then and start to work with me?
Obviously your fabulous track record was the first thing. But I think I was at a point where I maybe had lost a little bit of confidence in myself, and I don't know why. There was no real reason for it as such. And I just felt that I needed to have that support and understand the tools that were there, probably already within me, but just have someone to guide and steer that. And I think that was a really valuable experience, just being able to work with you and be challenged by you as well, to sort of take those skills and tools and really apply them moving forward. And I think it really was hugely important for me at that time, and probably gave me a new perspective on things. And I've recommended to a number of colleagues that I have worked with and other people to take that opportunity for personal development. I think it's really important. If you're not investing in yourself, how can anyone else invest in you? So I think it was a really important piece of my journey.
Brilliant. And something that I've seen you do, which I think is really powerful and inspiring for others. I mean, you started out, I hope you don't mind me saying this, as not wanting to really be up at the front presenting, and certainly didn't see yourself keynoting conferences. But you've gone from there to visibility in lots of different ways. So tell us about that and how you've achieved that and got over your fears.
Yeah, I think that there's been a number of opportunities now, which I'm very grateful for, at various different conferences and webinars and seminars. And I think it was helpful with the sort of the coaching as well, just to really sort of take that time to, really thoroughly prepare, and go through what it is that you want to say, and have that opportunity to make the voice heard. And I think now it's never as big a deal as you think it's going to be. It always seems like a much bigger deal before you do it. And actually, I think you come away from something like that kind of feeling exhilarated. So it was really great for me to get some of those opportunities. And as I said, there has been more and more opportunities have come along. And I think pushing yourself out of that comfort zone to embrace that, it of course then has knock-on impacts on other things in terms of, the wider awareness and your visibility and your network. So I think all of those things have gone really hand in hand, and there's been some really great opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. Like she's been quite modest here. So she closed a conference of 1,000 people, which is a bit woo. Amazing. She can be seen being interviewed on TV. With well, maybe not total regularity, but there's been quite a few,
There's been a couple.
quite a few where suddenly Tamsin pops up on the news, and obviously the sector you're in, you know, and there is a desire to have women's voices heard more, to show that diversity, and so being prepared for that makes a big difference. And obviously, that's really helped you build your credibility and your brand, and presumably hasn't hurt in going for the chair in renewable NI. So tell me what made you want to get involved there, and how that all went down.
Yeah, I'm super passionate about our sector, and I there is a lot that we can do for sort of Northern Ireland PLC, not only environmentally, obviously, and the benefits there, but from a social and economic point of view as well. And it's a tall ask what we need to do between now and 2030, but I'm convinced that we're poised and ready to deliver. We just need the right policy levers in place to allow us to do that. It had been something that I've always been very active in the industry group, in various different committees and working groups. But I probably thought about it a little bit the last time the elections were coming up. But I did the old, it's not the right time. We were expanding the business into GB at that stage, so I was opening two new offices and I was traveling a lot. And in hindsight, it probably wasn't the right time. But now, as we have an executive back up and running again, which is great, and when I see the challenge ahead between now and 2030, I really want to try and take a leading role in that, to try and help shape what it is that this sector is trying to do. So it felt like the right time to put my name in the hat, and say delighted that the members agreed, and elected me into that position. And actually, my deputy is a female as well, so we're taking over.
Representing well. That's good. That's good. And it makes me feel a bit more confident in the, because we probably all heard a little bit about 2030. That's what we're aiming for, and it's good to hear some of what's going on in the background, and to see people we know recognized involved in it. I feel like we're in much safer hands there. I know you.
Thank you.
So, what are some of the things you've been proudest of, would you say, along the
Ooh.
way?
Um, okay, I suppose a couple of sort of standout things for me. In the last role, obviously going from that sort of 6 month temporary contract and then working my way up to UK director, building a brand there and a business from nothing really on the ground. There was just me in Northern Ireland. We didn't have an office. There was no team. There was a team in Dublin, but there was nothing in Northern Ireland or the UK. And we were really completely unknown in the market. So going from that to being leaders in the field, and the team, building that team, I mean, what an amazing bunch. I can't help but smile when I talk about them, because they're an amazing bunch of people. And to see them flourish and grow as well was absolutely incredible. Um, More recently, obviously, hugely proud of setting up Omnipower. It's been something that I have always thought about, and so to actually bring that now to reality, is it's really incredible. As I said, the first couple of months have been so exciting, more exciting than I ever probably could have imagined. And there'll be a number of very exciting projects and joint ventures coming up, which I'll be able to talk about soon. But things that probably hadn't even crossed my mind, to be honest. Certainly so soon. So to be actually making that sort of progress, and seeing things taking shape already, yeah, I'm over the moon with that. Super proud of that.
That's brilliant, and it's really good to hear. But obviously, this is based on foundations that you've laid along the way. So, what are some of the things that made you feel like, yeah, I can go for this? And what are some of the things that you worked on that benefited your career and now are helping you, to, turn that vision into a reality?
Yeah, I mean, I think to be able to do this now, I had to do what I had done previously to not only build, I suppose, that sector experience and the experience of the projects, but getting that understanding and appreciation of how the business runs and all of the finances and all of that. But also, I think, investing in the personal development as we had talked about as well. To I suppose some of the most important things there are, my understanding me and my personal brand, what it is that I'm about, and my visibility, and building that network. I don't think. I mean, I know how important a business network is. I think that we all do, but I don't think I really appreciated actually how important it was until I started to set up the business. So, having that network of people to draw upon, and to support, I suppose, kicking off this journey has been incredibly important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tamsin and I were talking about this the other day, and it reminded me that anyone that works with me knows I bang on about network and how important it is. But I see this as somebody who had a brilliant network internally when I was in my corporate life. And when you work in a big business, that can often feel like enough. Like, oh, I know all the right people for this, and I know who to ask for that, and I know I can get anything I need done. But your external network, you never know when you're going to need that. And I started a business without an external network really to talk of, and so it's quite a pressure then to have to build that up from nothing. So yeah, it's definitely stands you in good stead. The moral support, the advocates, and then obviously the people that'll bring you some business.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
you don't last too long without that bit, do you?
Very, very, very important. But again, and something you always instill through your programs as well, Sinead, it's the follow-ups. It's okay going to the conferences and having those chats, but you've got to do something with it afterwards. You've got to have the coffees and the lunches and do the follow-ups and
Mm,
keep in touch, to really cement that. So that's been really has stood the test as well.
yeah. Oh, it's all in the follow up. So you've shared that you've had a couple of great role models. What about any other supporters or any people that you struggled with but learned from as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I have a very close knit family. I'm an only child, so obviously mum and dad and my husband as well. I mean, they've been absolutely great. And my grandparents, everybody's been incredible. Number one cheerleaders in my team. But I have also built up a great business network as well over the years. Some of who have become really good friends over the years too, and I'm sure you have found that as well. And that really has been hugely important, even from a point of view of sounding board. And it doesn't necessarily need to be someone who's working in your particular sector or space. And in fact, sometimes it's easier if they're not. Just to have something. Sometimes whenever you're able to vocalize something, and get it out of your head, it either becomes a good idea or a bad idea very quickly. So I've seen how important that has been to have those kind of tried and trusted sounding boards. Um, Luckily, I haven't had too many detractors, but I think where I think I've found that it's tended to be, with hindsight, people who perhaps don't necessarily have the skills or the ability, or they lack some sort of confidence in themselves, and they try and put that on others. So I've been very careful to try and ensure that I distance myself from those sorts of people, because I think that it just sort of brings you down. So distancing yourself from those kind of people, those kind of behaviors, because it's a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of you. And I think if you are doing that work on your saboteurs and your confidence, you don't need anybody kind of chipping away on that. So just really trying to put a bit of distance where those kind of behaviors and people have been.
I love that. And yeah, of course, you've already said it, we can be our own biggest detractor and critic. We don't need anybody else stepping into that space. And I think that's one of the great things I love working with the likes of yourself with, is about that self kindness that you learn to adapt better, distance yourself from your own behaviours as well as as other people's. So what do you think are some of the you've talked about redundancy was obviously a big challenge, and maybe being the only woman in the room. What other challenges have you faced along the way that have really helped you then step up?
Yeah, I think really most of the challenge for me has probably been trying to break through, as I said, in that kind of very male dominated sector, and having that confidence to push myself outside the comfort zone. And that's where the biggest opportunities have come, is pushing myself outside the comfort zone. So I suppose, if I was talking to anybody else or anyone coming up through the sector, that would be my biggest piece of advice, is take take the opportunities, but make the opportunities. So it's not always going to be handed to you. Someone's not always going to be coming looking to give you an opportunity. Sometimes you got to try and make that opportunity for yourself. So really, as uncomfortable as it might seem, going to an event or doing that speech at a conference or whatever it is, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be, and it probably will open up doors and lead on to more things. So I wish my younger self would have known that sooner.
But I think your more experienced self has really embraced that and adapted it. And one of the things that I see from you is that it's like you always set yourself a new challenge. Like, I'm not gonna sit still. I came out with this thing once in a webinar about how, if we stay in our comfort zone too long, if we stay still for too long, you're actually moving backwards, and you're even decaying as a person. Like, your skills kind of degrade, if you're not moving forward. There's always times where we need it to be a bit comfy and cozy because we've lots going on. But what I see with you is you get to a place, you allow yourself that bit of time, and then it's okay. What can I push myself with and challenge myself with now?
Yeah, definitely. What's next? What's coming next? And I'd say right from those sort of early stages, it's kind of been a bit of a theme with me. I think whenever the kind of the decision is in my head, it's like, okay, now I have to do something with it. So I some people would call me impatient, but once I get an idea in my head, it's usually
You
pretty
get shit
happy
done.
away.
I love it. I love it. So thinking about what's coming up then, like you decided to take this plunge. What was the decision maker for you? What made you go, right, this is my next challenge? I'm going to start my own empire.
Yeah, I think as I said, it's been something that I had been thinking about for a while. I had all great ideas of, taking a little break after the last role, and having some downtime, but I don't know who I was kidding, because it was never going to happen. So yeah, I think the catalyst for me, there was a few different opportunities that had been sort of in the ether, let's say, and that I'd heard on the grapevine. So those were sort of, I suppose, cemented my idea in terms of what I thought I might like to do. So I think having what always was very attractive is, I suppose, having that autonomy. And whilst on one hand, I suppose it's scary in some ways, walking away from a business where you get paid at the end of the month, and you don't have to think about it, to obviously having to generate that business yourself. The opportunity to do that really really excited me, and to be able to embrace that now, and see the fruits of that already coming through, and we're not even 2 months in, is really really exciting.
And not in the slightest bit surprising. So yeah, I would say watch this space, everybody. You will. Tamsin's going to be a big name. You already are, but much bigger, I would say. Um, so thinking then about what you want to achieve, like you said, one of your biggest things is lessons learned. You love to reflect, you love to take that time and build on it. So, what have been some of the important lessons you've learned that are going to help you fly ahead in this?
I probably, obviously professionally, the lessons learned hopefully have led to much more successful projects and doing things a little bit differently. But I think for me, it kind of comes back to what you said about not standing still. I think there's something that we can learn about everything that we do to take it forward to the next project or the next task, to hopefully make that even 0.5%, 1% better than the project before. So I think all of those lessons learned professionally, but more importantly, those lessons learned, I think, from a personal point of view. I think I learned an awful lot about myself particularly over the last few years, in terms of how I approached things, how I reacted to things, and challenges that were presented to me. And I think that really sort of cemented for me that, there's probably a way around, or a solution to any challenge. It's just about using, the tools at your disposal, and some of the processes that we talked about in the programs that we have done with you, Sinead, in terms of how to apply that so that you can move it forward. So it doesn't feel as scary. I think whenever you have those kind of control measures and preparation, you wouldn't go into a meeting without preparing. So it's not something that you go into lightly, setting up a business without really thinking that through, and what it looks like. So it felt like the right time, but I couldn't do it now without having been through everything that I had done before. All of that has been a very, very important learning experience, and I'm very grateful for all of the challenges and all of the difficulties actually that have been thrown at me in the last 20 years, because I think that that's very much made me who I am, understanding who I am and what it is that I want. And that's been the impetus for me to move forward now with my new business.
Brilliant. I'm so excited for you. Have you any last bits of advice? I've loved the what was it? The take the so not don't just take the opportunity, but make the opportunity. That's definitely one I'm going to be borrowing and using with others. Any last bits of advice for anyone listening, maybe thinking of starting their own business or thinking about going for a bigger opportunity?
Yeah,
What would you tell them?
do it. Put yourself out there. Step up for that new role, that new job, that promotion, whatever it is. Don't look at the criteria and think, I only meet 7 out of 10, so I can't do it. It's more, how can I do it, rather than I can't do it. I think the visibility, knowing your brand, knowing your personal brand, knowing yourself, and network, 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 network. As I said, I can't stress how important that is. No matter, and it's irrelevant whether you're setting up your own business, or within your own role, internally as well, so that you've got that visibility, with senior management. If you're thinking about that promotion, or you're thinking about moving forward, you've got to be visible within your own business as well. And invest in your personal development. Make time for it, because I think before I started working with you, Sinead, really easy to make that excuse: I don't have time, I'm too busy, there's too much on. But it really is so important. And I think, having been through those couple of programs now, with you, it's been fantastic. It's challenged me at times, as I said. It's made me self-reflect. It's given me lots and lots of those tools that I had mentioned, in terms of supporting the progression. And it's just knowing what those tools are and how to use them. It's very, very powerful. And I think once you've got them, and once you implement them, it takes the fear out of things. And it really helps reduce that self-doubt saboteur, because you're prepared, or prepared as best you can, and you've got the tools to deal with any of those curveballs that come along. So really investing in the personal development, your visibility, and your brand. I think those are three really, really important things, no matter what stage in your career you are, and no matter what it is you're doing, if it's a job within a company, or you're setting up your own business.
Brilliant. Oh, couldn't agree more. And I'll never forget one of the things that you said to me after we worked together was the power of having somebody that really believes in you. Like, what I love about all the women I work with is I'm so invested in you, and I know you're going to be amazing. And it's
It does make a big difference, and I think having, I call them cheerleaders, but having those cheerleaders who absolutely believe in is what it is you're going to do, I think it helps you have that belief in yourself as well. So
look at you. Oh my goodness. I bet in a year's time we're just gonna be like, whoa, look at what you have achieved. I know if this is 2 months in and she can't tell us some of the big things that are in the pipeline, but they are big. Um yeah, in a year, 10 years, holy smokes. Uh Connect with Tamsin, watch this journey because it's gonna be big.
thank you,
Well done. You deserve all of it.
thank you very much.
Thank you.